Hello and welcome back to A Splashy Painting, where it's time for us to rejoin contemporary artist Marion Dutton as she works her charm with oils to demonstrate how you can paint a beautiful panoramic beach scene in part 2 of today's Try Your Hand At project.
So early in the programme we'd started establishing this beautiful beach scene and we'd done the clouds. I'm now going to start working on the ocean area. I'm going to I've switched to a bristle brush, and I'm using a little bit of sap green into this grey mix from earlier. And I want to just start establishing a little bit of movement in this ocean. And I'm using a nice sweeping rocking motion just to start getting a little bit of colour in the sea. A little bit more of the green. I'm still keeping everything nice and soft. Little hair there, let's get rid of that. So I'm switching between the blue and the green just to get a little bit of movement in this ocean area. Keeping things lovely and soft and keeping everything nice and loose. I'm going to just blend that lightly just to keep everything soft, and I do want to make sure that the horizon line just melts into the background so there's no real hard line. I'm going to create a few larger rolling waves, again using this sort of green blue mix. We'll have one coming here and one here. And all I'm doing is just putting a slightly firmer pressure on the canvas and creating a little bit of a darker rolling wave. Again, I'm going to soften that ever so lightly. I want to keep everything really soft in this painting. I'm switching now to a palette knife. I'm going to create a little bit of some foam over the top of the waves. Let's move that out of the way. And I flatten the paint out. I'm going to add just the least amount of yellow into that, just to tint that white. A little touch of the orange as well, just to bring some of the sky colours down into the ocean. And I'll flatten that paint all the way out. Wipe the knife. You hold the knife in and pull it towards you, you'll get a little roll on the edge of your palette knife. I'm going to do that again, it's a little thick. Let's just wipe that knife away. Pull it towards you and you'll get a roll on the edge of the knife. And we'll use that to create the foam on the top of these rolling waves. I'm just going to touch the top. Now the key thing is to keep the top part of the knife very horizontal, otherwise it'll look like your ocean's tipping a little bit. So keep your knife nice and horizontal. Once you've positioned those on, wipe the excess paint away, and then we'll use the knife to pull this foam over. Now I always think of a barrel. You think of the wave as it's wrapping over and it's going over a barrel. And we'll just have this foaming and splashing. Again, we're keeping everything soft. So I'm just pulling this down to create these sort of lapping waves. So now we want to create some of the lapping waves as they come up onto the sand area. All this area here is going to be the sand. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to cut a roll of paint. And I'm going to use the knife, again keeping the blade, the top part of the blade nice and horizontal. Now I'm holding on tightly and there's a lot of pressure. And as I push and wiggle, it pushes out the paint from under the knife. And you get this lovely effect of the water lapping up onto the shore. If you don't particularly like the shape of something, just wipe off your knife and you can go over it with a clean knife and alter the shape slightly. So you get this beautiful lapping wave effect. And we'll add another one coming around here. You can go backwards and forwards, but again, keeping the blade nice and horizontal. And this just gives the illusion of that lapping waves, that lapping foam onto the beach area. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle onto the ocean area, using the knife again and getting the roll of paint. There's a lighter area here, so I'm just going to establish a little bit of a lighter area onto the ocean. Again, keeping that blade nice and horizontal. And this is just to add a little bit of a spark, a little bit of a focal area within your painting. Okay, I'm switching now back to the smaller bristle brush, wiping that excess paint, and I'm going into a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to start establishing where the beach is. Now I like the fact that the sky area is reflected into the beach, so I'm not trying to cover that entirely, but we'll just put a little bit of an area to suggest some wet sand. A little bit of blue in that, and that's all okay. Again, just keep your strokes horizontal, keeping them nice and flat. You may even put a little bit of this here just to suggest some of the sand. As this area is a little thinner, the water's thinner over here, some of that sand might be peeking through. Now I'm going to clean the brush, dipping it into thinners and removing the paint. I want to establish a little bit of extra light in the sky, so I'm going to go into some titanium white, a little bit of yellow, and we'll start putting in a slightly brighter. The sun might be behind these clouds, so I'm going to sort of give them a little bit of a silver lining. Again, that sort of also helps reinforce this lighter area that we've got on the sparkling on the top of the water. A little bit more of that yellow. And again, I'm going to go a little bit of finger painting, and we'll blend those in very, very lightly. And that's just giving you a slightly brighter area in the sky. I'm going to soften that slightly with the small blending brush. Okay, I'm switching now to a small detail brush. I'm going to put in a little bird. Now I'm using a grey mix from before, which is made with the burnt sienna, ultramarine blue and some titanium white. And we're going to put in a little bird on the beach. A little bit of detail work. Now I'm not putting a lot of information, it's just the suggestion. Just get a basic shape in there. Let's dip into some black, put a little bit of a black wing on. Maybe give him a little bit of legs. You won't see much of this from a distance. And then clean the brush and I'll dip into some titanium white, put a little bit of a highlight on there. Now we'll give him a little shadow to sit him down. and I'll blend that lightly with my finger. Now this time I'm using the small part of the knife and just putting a little bit of a waterline around there. Now let's give him a friend in the sky. Now I'm doing a lazy V for this. And into some black, and we'll tip those wings with a little bit of black. Clean off the brush and add a little bit of a highlight with some titanium white. This is just to add a little extra interest into the painting. Now we're coming close to finishing. I'm going to add some rocks in here. Switch to a slightly larger brush, and I'm going to use some burnt sienna and a little bit of black. I'm just looking for a nice dark. Now these are nothing too big, just going to put some little rocks at the edge here, and these will act like an eye stopper at the end of your painting. Keeping them nice and dark, and we'll have a few little shingly bits of broken rock and just stuff, just to add a little bit of extra interest. I'll wipe the brush and I'll pull a little bit of a reflection down. Again, this is all adding to the illusion of wet sand, and that across lightly. And we'll highlight those with, I'm using some of the white with a little bit of the yellow from earlier. And I'm just going to put on very little highlight. Again, I'm just making a suggestion. I don't want too much detail. And here we'll put a couple of little marks just to suggest some shiny stones. Back to the palette knife again. And again, I'm using the smaller side of the blade. Still getting the little roll on there, and I want to add a little bit of a waterline underneath these rocks, and that will really sit these down. I'm going to throw in a couple more distant birds. No detail on these are just like a V, a lazy V. We'll have one going the other way. And it's a case of just standing back and seeing if you want to add any more little details at this stage. And I'm quite happy. So I do hope you've enjoyed that today, and hopefully I'll see you again.
Great wet and wet oil painting technique there, Marion. Really like the highlights on the rolling waves, and a really beautiful beach scene. Right, time for our final break now, but join us in part 4 when we'll be shining the SAA spotlight on an up-and-coming professional artist and instructor, Rachel McNaughton, in our regular introducing feature. And I'll be delving deep into the splashy paint post bag to solve a few more of your artistic dilemmas. I'll see you after the break.